Ready to dive into some interview advice today?
Always up for that,
Uh-huh.
especially when we have such a great resource to work with.
Right. This guide with 51 common interview questions, A&D model answers, is seriously impressive.
I know. It's like having a cheat sheet for one of the most nerve-wracking parts of job hunting.
Totally. But we're not about just giving you a script to memorize, right?
Definitely not. It's not about sounding like a robot. It's about understanding what makes a great answer.
And more importantly, I think, why those answers work.
Exactly. It's like reverse engineering success, figuring out the formula so you can apply it to any interview question.
I love that. So imagine this. You're going into an interview not just prepared for the questions, but understanding the strategy behind the answers.
Feeling confident and prepared, not just reciting memorized lines.
That's exactly the kind of edge we're hoping to give you in this deep dive.
It's about leveling up your understanding of the whole interview game.
Yes. Okay, so let's jump right into those classic opening questions. Tell me about yourself. Why this company? They always seem to trip people up.
It's so tempting to just launch into a dry recitation of your resume, But that's not what leaves a lasting impression.
Yeah, it's almost like you can feel the interviewer's eyes glazing over sometimes.
Right. It's like they've heard it all before. So what truly makes an impact is showcasing how your unique experiences and skills actually connect with what the company needs.
It's like you're telling a story, but that story has to resonate with the listener.
Absolutely. You have to capture their interest, make them see why you belong in that story in their company. It's about showing you're not just there for any job, but for this job.
I've definitely been in interviews where I could practically feel the interviewer tuning out because the candidate just wasn't making that connection. It's amazing how often people overlook that. They get so focused on themselves that they forget to actually seem interested in the company.
And that genuine interest, that enthusiasm, it can make all the difference.
Because it shows you've done your homework. You're not just sending out generic applications.
Yeah.
You're genuinely invested.
Exactly. Passion is contagious. When someone genuinely wants to be a part of something, it shows, and that can really tip the scales in your favor.
Speaking of showcasing, let's talk about how this guide tackles those tell me about your skills questions. One thing that stood out to me was the subtle use of the STAR method.
Yes. The STAR method, a classic for a reason. It stands for situation, task, action, result. Such a powerful way to structure your answers because it lets you tell a compelling story about your abilities instead of just stating them.
Right. It's like, don't just tell me you're a great problem solver, show me.
Give me an example I can latch on to.
Exactly. It's like, remember that time when insert challenging situation. Well, here's how I swooped in with my mad problem-solving skills and saved the day.
Exactly. And the model answers in this guide really illustrate how to do that. They walk you through the whole scenario, making it way more relatable and memorable. And honestly, it's a lot more interesting to listen to as an interviewer, too.
Oh, for sure. Nobody wants to hear a robot reciting a list of skills. Stories are what make interviews come alive.
100% agree.
And it's not just about, tooting your own horn either, right? This guide doesn't shy away from those tougher questions.
Oh, yeah. The ones about weaknesses or failures, those can be scary.
Totally.
Yeah.
But they're going to come up, right?
Yeah.
So how do you handle them without completely tanking the interview?
Well, that's what I love about this guide. It really digs into those make or break moments, and it actually uses them as opportunities to demonstrate things like self-awareness and a willingness to grow.
I like that. So you're kind of flipping the script. You're taking a question that could be seen as negative and using it to highlight positive qualities.
Exactly. It's all about perspective. Because let's be real, nobody's perfect. Everyone has weaknesses. Everyone's made mistakes. But it's how you handle those things that really matters.
It's like that saying, it's not about how many times you fall down. It's about how many times you get back up.
Exactly. And being able to articulate that in a genuine way during an interview can really impress a hiring manager.
Because it shows you're honest, you're self-aware, and you're committed to growth.
Right. Like you're not just trying to present this perfect, polished version of yourself. You're being real. And that's refreshing.
I think it also builds trust,
Yeah.
Like you're not afraid to be vulnerable, to admit you have areas where you can improve.
Definitely. It shows humility, which is a very attractive quality in a potential hire. Nobody wants to work with someone who thinks they're always right.
For sure. There was this one model answer in the guide about delegation that really stuck with me. It went something like, I'm working on delegating more effectively. I have a tendency to take on too much, but I'm learning to trust my team and share responsibilities.
See, that's perfect right there. It acknowledges a growth area taking on too much, but also showcases a solution. Learning to trust your team, share responsibilities, that's huge.
It's like you're giving them a glimpse into your own
Yeah.
self-improvement journey,
Right. And it shows you're proactive about it. You're not just waiting for someone to tell you what to fix. You're actively trying to get better.
which I think ties into the next layer of interview questions this guide tackles. Uncovering your why, right?
Yes, getting to the heart of what motivates you. This is where things get really interesting. It goes beyond just your skills and experience and really tries to connect with the person behind the resume.
It's like, okay, we've read about your qualifications. Now tell us what makes you tick.
Yeah.
What are your passions? What does success mean to you? That kind of thing.
And what I love about the guide is that it provides these model answers that are concise, but still manage to reveal those deeper values and aspirations.
There's one about motivation that I particularly liked. It's short and sweet. I'm motivated by challenges that allow me to grow and by achieving measurable results. But it says so much.
It really does. You can tell right away that this is someone who's driven, who wants to make a real impact, not just clock in and clock out, you know?
It shows you're thinking about the bigger picture, which I think any interviewer would appreciate.
Totally. It shows ambition and a desire to contribute. And those are qualities that any company would be lucky to have.
Okay, so we've talked about showcasing skills, revealing your motivations. But what about those curveball questions? The ones about handling disagreements, dealing with difficult people, even admitting to failures. Those can be nerve-wracking.
Oh, for sure. Those are the ones that can really throw you off your game if you're not prepared. But they're also incredible opportunities to demonstrate your emotional intelligence and maturity.
And that's something you can't really fake, can you? Like you either have those qualities or you don't. And these questions really put them to the test.
Right. You can't really prepare a scripted answer for these types of questions. It's more about having that self-awareness and being able to think on your feet.
Which is probably even more important than just having the right answer memorized.
Absolutely, because in a real work environment, things don't always go according to plan. Being able to adapt, handle challenges gracefully, and maintain composure under pressure, those are invaluable skills.
And any good interviewer knows that. So they're going to be looking for those qualities in your answers to these tougher questions.
Exactly. They want to know how you react when things get tough. Do you crumble under pressure or do you rise to the occasion?
What I noticed is that a lot of the model answers in this guide, even for these tougher questions, emphasize open communication and learning from mistakes.
It's about owning your actions, demonstrating a willingness to learn from setbacks, and coming across as someone who's always striving to improve.
Nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes. But it's how we handle those mistakes that truly matters.
Precisely. And being able to articulate that in a calm and collected way during an interview shows a lot of self-awareness. It shows you're not afraid to be accountable for your actions and that you're committed to personal growth.
It's like you're saying, hey, I'm not going to pretend to be perfect, but I can guarantee you I learn from my experiences, and I'm always working on becoming the best version of myself. Now, the guide touches on this, but I'd love to hear your take on it. What's your advice for specifically navigating those questions about conflict, like those situations where you had a disagreement with a coworker or a boss? How do you talk about that without sounding like you're bad-mouthing someone else?
That's such a great question, and it's something that a lot of people struggle with. One thing I always emphasize is to focus on highlighting your conflict resolution skills. Instead of getting bogged down in the details of who said what, talk about the steps you took to find common ground and move forward as a team.
So it's more about showing how you can turn a disagreement into a productive conversation.
Exactly. It's about demonstrating that you can handle those situations with grace and professionalism, and that you're not afraid to have those tough conversations when necessary.
Which are such essential skills in any workplace, really. Speaking of essential, we can't forget about the dreaded salary expectations conversation. It's something I know a lot of people get anxious about.
It's understandable. Talking about money can be awkward, but it's an important part of the process, and it's something you should be prepared to discuss confidently and clearly.
It's like, nobody wants to go first. But I like how the guide emphasizes that research is key here. Knowing your worth is so important.
Absolutely. You got to go in there armed with information.
Yeah.
What are similar roles paying in your area? What's the company's financial situation? All that factors in.
And also thinking about your own, non-negotiables, right? What's the minimum you're willing to accept to make this move worthwhile?
Totally. You have to know your worth and what you bring to the table. But beyond just the numbers, it's also about confidence.
projecting that you know what you're talking about.
Exactly. You've made it this far in the interview process. You've showcased your skills. You've talked about your why. Now it's about advocating for yourself.
And I like how the guide even gives you some specific phrases to use to navigate that conversation gracefully.
Oh, yeah, those can be super helpful. Like, instead of just blurting out a number, you could say something like, based on my research and the responsibilities of this role, I would expect a salary in the range of insert range here, but I'm open to discussing specifics.
That's perfect. It's direct, it shows you've done your homework, but it also keeps the conversation open.
Because at the end of the day, salary is just one piece of the puzzle.
Right. It's about finding that overall fit. Is this a company where you can see yourself growing? Do their values align with yours? Those are all important factors to consider.
Totally. Speaking of fit, let's talk about that last question in the guide. The one about your ideal role. I thought that was such a clever way to wrap things up.
It's brilliant, actually. Gives you one last chance to reiterate your value proposition and enthusiasm and leave a lasting impression. It's like bringing the whole interview full circle, right? You can connect back to what you talked about at the beginning, how your skills and passions align with what the company is looking for.
Exactly. And it shows you're thinking long term. You're not just looking for a job, you're looking for the right job.
The one where you can really see yourself thriving. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We talked about first impressions, showcasing your skills, uncovering your why, navigating those tougher questions, even tackling those salary expectations.
Phew, it's like a crash course in interview success.
Right, but hopefully in a way that's like engaging and thought-provoking, not just overwhelming.
That's always the goal. We want to equip you with the tools and insights you need to feel confident and prepared walking into any interview.
Because it's not about memorizing a script. It's about understanding the strategy behind the answers and then being able to adapt those strategies to fit your own unique experiences and goals.
Exactly. It's about being authentic, showcasing your best self, and approaching the whole process with confidence.